Before the turn of the 20th century, American dinner tables held hidden dangers that unsuspecting families consumed every day.
But beneath this bustling surface of progress lay a dark reality of completely unregulated and hazardous food production. What looked like pure, wholesome milk was often watered down and mixed with toxic chalk to restore color. Thousands of infants grew terribly ill from this poisoned dairy, sparking a quiet crisis across major American cities.
Meanwhile, the morning coffee that millions relied upon to start their day was rarely what it appeared to be.
Greedy manufacturers routinely stretched expensive coffee beans by mixing them with charred sawdust, dirt, and roasted acorns. Unsuspecting consumers drank this bitter, contaminated brew every morning, wondering why it tasted so remarkably strange.
But the deception did not stop with breakfast beverages, extending deep into the nation's chaotic meat supply.
Meat that had gone completely foul was routinely treated with dangerous chemical preservatives in this place.
Powerful embalming fluids like formaldehyde were injected directly into rotting beef to make it look fresh.
Families readily purchased this treated meat, completely unaware they were ingesting chemicals meant for the morgue.
Even the sweets manufactured for young children were laced with vibrant but highly lethal chemical pigments. To achieve bright reds and greens, candy makers used lead chromate, arsenic, and toxic copper salts.
Unexplained illnesses frequently struck schoolrooms after children consumed these beautiful, poison-laced confections from local candy shops.
As the modern era introduced canned goods, convenience came with an entirely new and invisible danger.
Early canning methods utilized heavy lead solder to seal the tins, which slowly leached directly into the food.
Deadly botulism toxins thrived inside poorly processed cans, turning simple family meals into lethal biological hazards. Beyond food, the unregulated market was flooded with secret patent medicines promising to cure every known ailment. These popular tonics were frequently loaded with highly addictive opium, cocaine, and toxic levels of pure alcohol. Soothed by these dangerous mixtures, many children slipped into permanent slumbers, devastating families who trusted the labels.
For the growing working class in crowded cities, cheap street food was often the only affordable option.
Hot meat pies!
But these street vendors operated absolutely zero sanitation standards, leaving food exposed to filth and disease. As public health crises mounted, visionary scientists began conducting rigorous laboratory testing on everyday consumer food products.
What they discovered shocked the nation, revealing a vast and deadly web of corporate greed and poison.
Outraged citizens took to the streets, fiercely demanding that the government step in to regulate the food industry.
The fierce political battle culminated in 1906 with the passage of the landmark Pure Food Act.
This historic legislation birthed the Food and Drug Administration, forever changing how the American nation produced its food. Today, we enjoy safe meals because of the brave scientists and citizens who fought against unregulated poison.
The next time you read a food label, remember the dark history that made your safety possible.
Our modern health is built entirely on the lessons learned from the dangerous foods of the forgotten past. Before regulations took hold, common chemical preservatives were added to food without any thought of long-term consequences.
Parents often watched in confusion as their children grew mysteriously ill from standard meals purchased at local markets.
For decades, powerful food barons fiercely protected their high profits by actively lobbying against any form of inspection.
In crowded city slums, street vendors relied on heavy spices to mask the taste of severely spoiled ingredients.
Even luxury items were dangerous, as high-end catering companies often use chemical stabilizers that cause severe poisoning.
Independent laboratory reports slowly built an undeniable mountain of evidence, exposing the terrifying scale of food contamination.
Public awareness reached a boiling point when sensational newspaper exposes revealed exactly what Americans were putting in their bodies.
The push for regulation was driven by dedicated professionals
who risked their careers to prove the food was unsafe.
Their tireless efforts finally forced reluctant lawmakers to confront the deadly practices of the nation's biggest food manufacturers.
The safety standards we take for granted today were paid for by a generation that fought for pure food.
Before safety laws, patent medicines often contained dangerous levels of heavy metals like mercury and toxic lead compounds. Desperate parents, lacking proper medical guidance, unwittingly gave their sick children remedies that made them significantly worse.
Even high-priced imported treats were not safe, frequently containing unregulated chemical dyes banned in their own countries.
Unscrupulous brewers regularly added toxic chemicals to cheap beer to fix foul tastes and artificially maintain a frothy head. Working men relaxed with these contaminated beverages, completely unaware of the slow chemical damage occurring inside their bodies. Early consumer advocacy groups began printing alarming pamphlets to educate the public about the dangers hidden in grocery stores.
Organized groups of determined housewives launched powerful boycotts against food brands known to use dangerous chemical additives.
The mounting public pressure made it impossible for politicians to ignore the desperate need for strict federal food standards. The passage of the Pure Food Act marked the very first time that deceptive food executives faced actual criminal prosecution.
Every meal we enjoy today stands as a monument to that historic victory for consumer health and corporate accountability.
Baking flour was another common target for deception, frequently packed with cheap plaster of Paris to increase total weight.
Honest bakers unwittingly produced heavy, toxic loaves of bread that slowly poisoned the local communities they proudly served.
Expensive wines were also forged using dangerous chemical flavorings and toxic colorants to mimic rare, aged vintage varieties. Counterfeit alcohol operations flourished in dark city warehouses, completely free from any oversight or product safety inspections. For the poorest citizens, the threat was constant, as they could only afford the lowest grade, dangerous foods.
The tide began to turn when brave, pioneering chemists started documenting these widespread industrial frauds in official reports.
Concern spread quickly through the town as people learned just how far ordinary food practices had strayed from safety.
The fierce political resistance finally shattered, leading to the historic federal intervention that permanently reshaped American commerce.
With the new laws in place, official inspection seals guaranteed that food was safe before entering local markets. Today, the simple peace of mind we feel at dinner is a direct gift from that historic victory.
Baking ingredients like alum were routinely substituted with industrial chemicals to cut production costs for major brands.
Even simple home-baked treats became sources of intense fear as a sudden, unexplained illness swept through the quiet town. Pure honey was heavily faked, created entirely from cheap corn glucose mixed with toxic yellow chemical food coloring.
Unregulated factories churned out tons of this completely synthetic honey, selling it at premium prices to unsuspecting families.
On city streets, millions of urban laborers daily relied on cheap, uninspected meat sausages for their quick lunches.
These popular meats were prepared in utterly filthy conditions, exposed constantly to swarms of insects and urban rats.
The scale of the danger finally forced pioneering public health officials to begin systematic scientific investigations of food.
Their alarming discoveries exposed a terrifying national crisis that corporate food executives desperately tried to cover up.
An outraged public organized massive nationwide protests, fiercely demanding that federal laws be enacted to protect families. The strict safety regulations we enjoy today are the direct result of that fierce historic battle for purity. Butter was routinely adulterated, stretched with cheap animal fats, chemical dyes, and toxic borax to preserve its appearance.
Families consumed these toxic dairy spreads daily, completely unaware that their breakfast was laced with heavy industrial preservatives.
Even high-end luxury desserts contained hidden dangers, often stabilized with industrial bone glues containing trace heavy metals.
Imported spices like pepper and cinnamon were heavily diluted with ground nutshells, charcoal, and toxic lead-based colorants. For millions of hardworking Americans in industrial cities, cheap street food stalls were a daily, hazardous necessity.
Operating with absolutely zero sanitation oversight, these stalls served food heavily contaminated by urban filth and bacteria.
The growing public health crisis finally compelled dedicated academic scientists to launch the nation's first food safety investigations.
Their undeniable scientific evidence exposed a massive national scandal that corporate monopolies could no longer safely conceal.
Outraged families took to the streets across America, fiercely demanding strict federal regulations to guarantee food purity.
The pristine, safe food supply we enjoy today was won by a generation that refused to tolerate poison. Canned vegetables like copper-treated peas and pickles were artificially colored to look unnaturally vibrant on store shelves. Unsuspecting parents frequently watched their children suffer severe stomach pains after eating seemingly healthy, chemically altered vegetables.
Fruit jams were heavily faked, manufactured from cheap apple waste, coal tar dyes, and synthetic chemical flavorings.
Unregulated operations flooded local markets with these completely artificial preserves, reaping massive profits at the public's expense.
On crowded city streets, millions of working-class citizens daily relied on cheap street food vendors for survival.
But these popular food stalls operated with zero hygiene standards, exposing meat to rampant filth and bacteria.
The mounting health crises finally compelled dedicated scientific professionals to begin rigorous laboratory testing on everyday food.
Their alarming scientific data revealed a vast and deadly web of corporate greed that shocked the entire nation.
Outraged citizens launched massive nationwide protests, fiercely demanding that the federal government step in to regulate factories. The reliable food safety standards we enjoy today were paid for by a generation that fought for change. The industrial era unleashed thousands of untried chemicals, invisibly infiltrating the sensory landscape of American food and drink.
As synthetic mimicry dominated, the texture of authenticity quietly eroded, leaving only chalky remnants and dangerous pigments.
But a new generation of microscopists learned to decode the complex, genuine signatures of raw materials like pure milk. This scientific precision became standardized, turning scattered laboratories into disciplined factories for identifying and certifying industrial fraud.
Federal authority aggressively confiscated mountains of fakes, from bags of industrial sawdust coffee to gallons of dyed vinegar.
Factories were forced to scrub decades of grime, replacing clandestine danger with systematic cleanliness and transparent operations.
The printing presses finalized the permanent victory, immortalizing the explicit text of the act in official federal code.
This single act of political courage dismantled the chaotic regulatory past and installed the architecture of modern federal oversight.
The protest transformed into institutionalized vigilance, with trained federal inspectors quietly monitoring every step of food production.
We dine in security today because they replaced corporate secrets with the transparent monument of pure, authentic ingredients.